Oh yeah, they're very different because like I would argue like it's like the difference between skiing and snowboarding. Skiing is easy to get into and hard to master, while snowboarding is hard to get into and easy to master.
Hmm.
And it's very much like that. World creation is very easy to get into, hard to master because like
Welcome to Metaverse Degen. I'm Lion.
I'm Old Man Raptor, and we got one hell of a guest with us today. I'll get that out without fucking it up, and that is
hello, my name's Peakboat.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Peakboat, for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
a
We
pleasure to
appreciate
be
you
here.
being here.
Hmm. So let's just get started then. What are you most known for, and how did you get started with everything and into the platform?
I think what I'm most known for is probably my work on Argus. If you know them, they're the the funny little SAO game company. You're on VRchat. I work pretty closely with them. I'm a part of the team, and I'm most known for my world design and 3D design work I do for them. It's pretty fun. And you asked how to get into VRchat, right?
How'd you get into VRChat and started with 3D design and all the magic techno wizardry I wish I knew?
It's it is I would say a harrowing tale, but it's pretty mundane at the most part. I originally kind of got into it back like in 2016, I think it was, when all that
Hmm.
Uganda Knuckles and like videos were coming out of VRChat. I originally didn't even have a VR headset. I just started like on desktop and I tried like drawing worlds and I just enjoyed like messing around, just kind of doing whatever. It wasn't until I think 2022 when I stumbled upon, one, got a VR headset, two, stumbled upon Aincrad, and I was like, whoa, this is cool. I got really into the community and really into like the, atmosphere, and that was like my first VR chat community I was a part of. And then of course I started getting to more RP stuff and all sorts of stuff. And it wasn't until my friend Block basically like showed me an avatar he made. I was like, what kind of game rip is that? And he's like, I made this. And I was like, the wires clicked in my head. I was like, I can make avatars. And I used to draw a lot before that, and so this was kind of a nice creative way, an outlet to kind of express my character designs and like world designs. I often just like kind of made and really had no idea what to put them in. And yeah.
Oh, wow. So, what were some of the first creations you made, and how did that lead to what you're doing now with Argus?
Oh yeah, I can actually get in some of them because pretty much I used to exclusively only do avatars. My first ever avatar, here we go. You might need to bring down the camera
Oh,
because he's small.
uh,
But hello. This is my little box knight. I gave him a little cardboard sword and little cardboard armor. Obviously, you can probably see some, technical wrongs here of like clipping and stuff, but very much like my first avatar, but I was very proud of it at the time because I was like, I made this, no one has this. This is one of a kind. And yeah, I kind of evolved, kind of made more weird. You might need to bring up they all vary in height.
that's
But
all good.
yeah, so
Oh, wow, that looks dope.
this is when I started like doing some of my own like, characters. This one was designed for a comic. One I still haven't made because my biggest flaw is I'm a perfectionist and will not start something until the idea is perfect.
Hmm.
And then of course now I am on to this current one I use on daily, which I'm very proud of.
It looks really awesome. It
Hey,
is.
Peak. I
Oh,
just got a question for you. Do you feel when you made your first one, did you feel like you were boxed in?
honestly, I don't know why, but I felt like very free. Like at the time, I only had used Blender one other time, and that was, of course, the donut tutorial.
Mhm.
And you know, I will famously say the donut tutorial it's not bad, but that does put you in a boxed mindset. But it was when I started making avatars and like just like I can put anything here, I was like, I felt very free with what I could do.
Oh wow.
Okay. Hey, I guess I'll ask you my always the famous question. What's the weirdest thing you ever seen in VR when you first got in?
Weirdest thing I've ever seen. Like, I've seen a lot. I was there for like those, of course, the Ugon Knuckles cults, all of the cults. Just the random avatars people would decide to just raid areas, and I thought that was just so fun. Uh, Weirdest thing? God, that is such a hard question. Um, Honestly, yeah, I think it's mostly just like all the cults and stuff, and like some communities are just crazy in general. Like I think, yeah, no, one time I saw like people are running like a strip club in VRChat, and that's like, how is that profitable? But they make money, so yeah.
Okay. So
Okay.
what were some of your first steps in VRChat like, and how did making avatars affect your view of VRChat in that early time?
I think it very much opened my eyes to like what the platform is capable of and that kind of stuff because at first I just thought weird little game where you put on a VR headset and just, talk to people like literally VR chat. But as I got into the more creative side of things, of course, I started talking to Argus and, Freaky, now the owner of Argus, introduced me to a lot of other creators, and I was like, oh my God, this is huge. You can like, because like, I now talk to a lot of people who like do a lot of creative work. I believe their name is Oz Pair, and they run a VR chat gallery, like an art
Hmm.
gallery where you can actually purchase paintings like for money and like people can submit their stuff, and I've been planning to submit some of my work, some of my like 2D artwork into that because it's a very cool thing. But yeah.
Oh wow. So I'll ask you this: what got you started with 2D art, and may I ask what got you started there, and how much of that affects what you create here?
That one's actually a really funny story. So this was way before VR chat. Like when I was younger, I always liked to doodle, little stick figures, a robot just shooting laser beams, stuff a normal little boy would like doing. And it wasn't till middle school that I met my one of my friends. And of all things that really got me passionate about art, they drew this fucking picture of Sans the skeleton looking like cool as shit, and like my brain exploded and I was just like, oh my God, I want to do that. I want to make Sans the skeleton look cool as fuck. And so that was what sent me down that kind of, path of wanting to be an artist and wanting to put my works out there.
Oh wow. That's actually a pretty awesome way to get into art. And did you ever make the Santa skeleton image that you said you wanted to make?
Nope. I never once drew Sans the skeleton ever.
Okay.
Uh,
Fair enough. So from when you said in the earlier days is when you first started getting into Argus and RPs and stuff. What what was your first steps into Argus like with the Sword Art Online world and stuff? May I ask? And how did you get
oh,
into the team?
yeah, that was very intimidating stuff. And a bit of a funny story too. So at first, like, I was very intimidated to even apply because it was like, back then I was like, I knew the very basics of Blender, and I was like, oh man, these guys are huge. These are like professionals. Of course, now that I'm working with the team, I know we're all just amateurs. Like, of course, we're all very skilled in our own right, but none of us are triple game studio, kind of stuff. But back then, yeah, I was very intimidated and a bit scared. But I put in an application. I actually applied for 3D art, and I never heard back. And for the longest time, I thought, dang, my application must have got rejected. And I eventually moved on to helping these people trying to make an Alfheim world. If you know SAO, that's like the second season. So, all the fairies and stuff. And I made this huge, giant world, which, if you want, I could take you guys to there later. But, huge giant world. I made all the different biomes and different terrains and like mountains and stuff. And I even like 3D modeled the world tree in the middle. And apparently, my friend Waybear, who was working at the team on the time, saw this and was like, we should get this guy in world design. And, eventually they talked with Savvy, who was doing applications. And apparently, my first application was accepted. They just never reached out to me. So for the longest time, I thought I was rejected, and it turns out, yeah, no, they just never did the interview. Of course, then I got on the team. I did world design for a bit, and then eventually I showed them, hey, I can 3D model, and now I'm showing them, hey, I can design, and so I'm basically getting into 3 different parts of the team right there. So
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Mhm.
Wow, that's pretty awesome.
Nice.
So how much to the current project have you been working on? So if people were to go through the world that Argus is building, how much of this project is yours, and how long have you been working on things like that for?
Mm. Like, I would say, like, surprise, like, only about a good, like, 10 to 15%, because the team is huge. There's
Oh,
so
yeah.
many people working on it, and a lot of the stuff I, work with is, of course, stuff people previously made. So, it's not every day I get to make something new, but one of my biggest projects, the one I'm most proud of right now, is the Colosseum, which I've added into 1.6. This huge broken Colosseum with a huge environment to it, and people love it. I made the whole thing from scratch, from design phase to 3D modeling to putting it in the world. The whole thing is completely custom made for, Aincrad. And every time I see it or hear someone talking about it, I get a big, ear to ear grin on my face. I'm like, I'd love to hear that.
Okay. So I have another bit of a question. It's not really related to Argus so much, but may loop into when building the environments, like for example, Sword Online or some of the many worlds that you've made. What have been some of your favorite interactions with people who've seen it mask, and what are there anything in those worlds that you kind of put in particularly for a reason?
Oh yeah. I guess like to talk more about my own world since I have been going off on Argus for a bit. Um, some of my own worlds, every major season of the year, I actually hold like a fancy little ball in VRchat. So, I invite a lot of people, and currently I'm actually working on this fall one, which is only in the next 3 days. It's completely making me lose my mind because I am just on that, I need to have this done soon high, so I'm very excited about that. But the things, I like to do is mostly like the big things I like to do in worlds is actually architecture over anything else. I love designing buildings. I love, creating like cool, giant, grand architecture. I am maybe a little obsessed with it, but yeah,
Oh,
it is quite the interesting little thing.
hmm. So, do you remember the first time someone has seen any of the projects you've working on Mask?
Oh yeah, I believe my first ever project was an Avatar World slash big maze I made for my Avatar Worlds, but also like I planned on having it loop back into a comic I was making at a time. In typical fashion, you might realize my comics normally don't do all that well, and I just eventually am like, let's redesign it from scratch. But basically I made this big maze, and when people first saw it, it was kind of like the, oh, very cool, like obviously like I don't want to hurt his feelings kind of thing, but it definitely like there was parts people like legitimately liked when I started making some of my own like little buildings to add into the world, and like I made the little like end goal and the little starter area where like there's nice little trees and it's just kind of like little chill campfire area. At the time, I can remember the anxiety of just not knowing what I was doing and just like looking at the Unity and being like barely knowing how to move around the camera. But yeah, it like it's very yeah.
Hmm. So how did you work through those anxieties of like not knowing or afraid to show or work on something? How did you work those anxieties, and do they still persist today?
Oh, most certainly. I still have a ton of anxieties whenever I work on worlds. Like I'm just like am I doing this right? All that sort of stuff. But, my biggest help is, of course, use YouTube and Google. It's don't feel ashamed to just look up your problems and have it teach you, or look up a video on how to use Unity. Honestly, like, I've been, doing this stuff for 2 years, and, I've learned a ton just because, I look up my problems, and I recommend that to anyone who is trying to get into those. Just look up anything, as dumb as it might sound, to block not moving, look that up. Trust me, it'll help you in the long run than you just slamming your keyboard.
I've heard a lot of.
Where do you get
Ooh.
where do you get some of your ideas from when
Oh,
you start your
yeah, I get a lot of my ideas from, at least for my architecture, I try to take it from real life. So, whenever like I have like an off day and I'm a bit like creatively low, I'll kind of always like go out and try like normally like downtown. I'll try and like go look at buildings, look at architecture, especially looking at like older buildings. And then of course like, once I get further inspiration knowing stuff I want to make, I'll look into like references, that kind of stuff. But when it comes to like stuff that's like very mythical. A lot of that I get from like, media I might watch. My current comic I'm trying to make, I take a lot of inspiration from One Piece, and I don't take up a lot of references from it, but I try to make a similar energy of like, a bit of goofiness in the character design, but like very intimidating parts where like like it's almost like your heart drops when you see like certain panels.
Oh wow. So
Okay.
how many comics have you made over the years, and uh, what have been the stories and inspirations behind them?
Ooh, currently, actually, there might have been. Currently, I've made three. Yeah, I've made three. The first one I ever made was called The Drake. It's on Webtoons. I'm not exactly proud of it. I made it back in my like the start of high school, so when I was like a what was it called? And now I can't remember what you like the start like when junior I was a junior in high school. So, or freshman, sorry. God. Anywho, yeah, back when I was a freshman, I made this comic called The Drake. Basically, it was a story about a woman who is an assassin, is paid to steal a crown, and is eventually killed. But the crown gives them a weird, mysterious power that allows them to basically be like Deadpool, regenerate. Like I said, the writing's bad, the art's pretty bad. It's all just kind of like I was still trying to find my own style, and God, the anatomy. Bleh. Um, but after that, I moved on to a comic which I'm currently remaking, and the one I was talking about, which I call AOLK, which at the time standed for Adventures of a Little Knight, which as it suggests, the story isn't hard to guess. It's about the adventures of like this little derpy knight I drew. Um, and that one I've actually had a ton of fun like remaking. At first, the story was pretty lackluster, and that one's also on Webtoons if you want to look it up. But once again, don't recommend it. The art's a little bit better, but the story is kind of, just not all there, which is why I've like gone back and revised it, and now like I feel like I actually have a sense of a story. And, the third one I made was pretty short-lived, but it was kind of representative of the time I worked at as a hospital janitor, and I kind of wanted to make this kind of wacky story of, a hospital janitor, but the hospital isn't quite normal, and he has to kind of deal with just crazy, absurd stuff. At the time, I actually drew that comic on post-it notes when I was working. Like, just in the break room, I would just kind of doodle down some of the comic pages. That one, I don't even think you can find because I deleted the Instagram for it, so.
Oh, so are there any how long do those comics run for, and is there any parts of it that are your personal favorite that that you look back to, or
Honestly, I think outside of every single one I ever look back to, despite the fact I'm remaking AOLK, I still look back to the Drake a ton, just because I do look back to that kind of sense of fun I had designing the characters and making a half-ass story. It was like a very fun moment, and sometimes I will like go back to it and I'll be like, do I revise this? The answer is normally no, but it does still hold a very special place in my heart.
hmm? So with everything you're up to between the comics, the worlds, the avatars, and Argus, what drives you to keep on making art and keep on working through all that you work on or go through, or the struggles, anxieties?
Mm, yeah, honestly, and I guess this is, a good thing to say to anyone else that feels like they're struggling. The biggest thing I always kind of tell myself, and I have a kind of, I think it's called a nihilistic world perspective, or an optimistic, I have no idea. But basically, it's nothing means anything and nothing matters, so do what you want. Basically, like, I just kind of live off that rule of it's not like it'll matter because one day I'll be dead, so who cares if like this doesn't succeed? I'm just gonna do what I want. And that's definitely helped me out. But honestly, my biggest, inspiration are, of course, friends. Having people that can support you, and of course, you can take your stuff to, and they can give you like actual feedback. So it's very, important to rely on your friends because if you are feeling low, they're always there to bring you back up.
Hmm. That's a very uplifting view on how you work through things. Um, so another fun question I'd like to have is, what have been some of the hardest things you've worked on for projects, or either with art or here in VR, and how did you work through those problems?
Ooh. I think I mentioned my ball worlds earlier, like the galas and stuff, whatever you want to call them, fancy gathering areas. Those have been the single stressful, like most stressful things I've ever had to make, and it's mostly because like I will always start a month, like I'll give myself 30 days, and then 30 turns to 15, and then the pressure's on when it's like 5, because time flies. How
Hmm.
I work through those though is I'm very willing to make compromises. If I could show you guys some of the designs I have for like the original versions of these worlds I designed, you'll realize they are very small. The like current version's very small in comparison. And, that's because I, like, as time approaches, I need to start making cutbacks and I need to, like, spend about an hour just telling myself what's necessary, what's not, how do I get through this? Because if I don't finish this, well, some people are definitely going to be disappointed and don't want to do that. So, yeah, you have to kind of spend a little bit basically getting priorities straight and then, moving on.
Hmm. Okay.
And, yeah.
Okay. So when you're in those crunch periods, making the decisions of what's necessary, not necessary, how do you choose what stays and what goes?
Normally, at least for my current one, I've gone based off what I've already made, what I've already hard designed, and what in my brain I know I can deconstruct the shapes and make them in a couple seconds. And even then, like, I still need to make a ton of cutbacks because, like, originally I wanted, like, currently I'm designing this castle. Originally I wanted a kitchen. I wanted, a bunch of rooms. I wanted so much. And eventually once I got to that point, I was like, okay, this is where we're gonna have to start pulling things back because simply put, I don't have enough time to be focusing on stuff like, a kitchen. It's not insanely necessary for a party who's gonna want to be in the kitchen when the party's going on. So half the time it normally boils down to where are people gonna be and what are people gonna care about. And I think that's a very important thing for any world or game design is try and get in the thought process of a player. And because yeah, no, in Argus, I have to think about that a lot, especially like if you're designing a path or something, or you want something to catch someone's eye, you have to be thinking, where are they looking? What are they thinking about? And what will they think when they see that? Because they may notice like a lantern in the distance, but is it eye-catching enough to think, do I go over there? Sometimes the answer is yes, but sometimes it's no. And then like so if you want to capture their eyes, maybe adding more detail, a big rock. Something that almost says like it's hiding away from you, but it's still noticeable. So it's like a little like YouTube thumbnail, you know?
Hmm. Okay. So you've had, is that a skill like with the whole lantern in the distance example, trying to catch people's eyes? Is that a skill or something you picked up from within Argus?
It's just kind of a thing I kind of I wouldn't say have. I definitely picked it up somewhere, but where I can't really say because I have no idea. I would probably say it's just my time as a kind of introverted kid playing a lot of video games, basically knowing like this is what I would do, this is like what captures my attention, but
Hmm.
also just kind of like I somewhat like to like I like to God, my brain's completely blanking out here. Sorry, but
It's okay.
sometimes sometimes I like to kind of read up on like stuff like psychology, that kind of effects on the human brain. I wouldn't say I use it to the extent like I'm thinking like this will, activate this part of the brain and that. I just kind of like sometimes I'll be like, like what does philosophy dictate, you know?
Understandable. So, how much with working with the Argus team since you said you started when you were earlier on in your skill level? How much did you improve once you joined Argus, and what were some big takeaways that you still use or remember that you were taught today?
I think some of the biggest skills I have gained is that prioritizing thing. I like working with a company, I've definitely realized, how to kind of bring down my workload and how to optimize it, like how to get from point A to point B fastest. Am I the fastest? No. I'm probably still one of the slower people on the team just because I am still new. But, I've at least picked up that skill set of being able to know what would and would not be important because, like, I guess going back to the Coliseum and, pretty much anything I ever make, I over design way too much. I want something big, go big or go home. And, working on Argus, I've learned how to downsize when necessary. I still, of course, get that sense of go big or go home when I, like, am doing my own projects, but at least in professional settings, like commissions and that kind of stuff, I know to hold back that urge a little bit.
Okay. So, with the Colosseum in mind, what were you initially imagining it would be like, and what kind of how did that change with what people see now in 1.6?
Oh yeah, I really wanted to go like a Roman style Colosseum. Like I didn't just want it to be, a circular wall, a little area up there. Like I wanted I wanted a larger wall. I wanted it to be traversable within. I wanted you to be able to find different stuff. I wanted bleachers. I wanted a little, railings. I wanted like so much. And then I realized, oh, I don't have the polygon count for this because I have to work within like 20,000, or I believe I got down to 15,000. but
Oh wow.
so I had to yeah, I had to kind of start cutting back, and as much as it pained me, I just had to simplify it.
Okay. So what was the initial purpose for the Coliseum, and how did the community respond to it coming to be?
The initial purpose was the same as it is now, of just like a little arena for people to find and fight, but also explore. I still wanted people to kind of like be able to go there, not necessarily to fight, but be able to have a sense of wonder and adventure. Um, and I think I hit those marks pretty well. People definitely seem to like to fight in it. People even saying they're gonna claim it as their own, so like try and claim that territory. So it's definitely fun to see, and I can't wait for 1.6 to see people and how they like, just being in there and fighting and stuff. So it'll definitely be fun to watch.
I'm sure it will be. So I think something you've heard before, but I ask you again: people claim territories in the world. What's going on with that?
Yeah. Yeah, so this isn't like a necessarily official part of the thing, but something the community kind of likes to do is I don't really know if they do it anymore. They kind of claim like a spot now, but way back when they used to kind of like legitimately like they had like a map, there was this Discord and everything. I remember seeing it, and there was like a map of like territories, borders, like people were really into this. Another thing the community does is they make like guilds, so these guilds would like fight each other for these territories. It was pretty cool. To my knowledge though, it got like a tad bit toxic like towards the end of its kind of lifespan, so it's kind of
Mm.
cooled down a ton, which is good. Don't want like a ton of toxicity in the community, but all things considered, guilds probably will be an official thing in Argus, but territory probably for at least a long time won't.
Hmm. How did you and the team take that whole community growth in terms of like claiming territory, entire guild wars? What were your thoughts when you first saw it?
Honestly, my thought was this is cool. I like this. It's like kind of like a cool thing to see. It's like the kind of stuff you'd see in an MMO. I think that was maybe everyone's similar reaction. I kind of joined like as this thing was ending its life. So, like the territory thing. But yeah, I joined the team as the territories were coming to an end. So I didn't really get to hear a lot of the other people's reactions to it. I'd presume it was probably a similar thing of like amazement of like, whoa, our community is doing this, and then a bit of disappointment as it became like a very toxic thing.
Hmm.
And so I do enjoy the community though. Like I do enjoy talking to them as like because it's not the community that's toxic. It's just like some aspects can, like any good community, can just get out of hand. And all things considered, the fact our community handled those things themselves, uh, I think we're all super glad because that means we don't have to get involved and can continue just making the game without needing to focus too much on that kind of stuff.
Hmm. Okay. So with you and the working in the world building team, did you make or do you know of any nods to the community that were put into the world over time, like different guilds or certain players or memes, anything like that?
Oh yeah. Actually when I first was around, I used to post a lot of art in the Discord, and I had this kind of like series of artworks of like stealing people's crystals and then selling them because there's like a glitch where crystals and health bars would kind of just be left behind and a person could just like continue moving without them. So I kind of made this whole meme of like, hey, I'm taking these and selling them back. Um, and then one day in the world, my friend like comes up to me and like, dude, you gotta check this out. And I was like, what's happening? And they take me over to one of the cities called Tobana, and they just point to a roof, like take me inside a building, point up to the roof, and I'm like, what is it? And it's my artwork on the ceiling, and I was just like, almost cried. I was like, that's so cool. I love that. And then of course now that like I'm on the team, I know about like all the little Easter eggs we put, especially during like the kind of like open beta events and that kind of stuff. We really go ham because we know it's just gonna be gone later. So I believe one time we turned like the mayor's house or like the guild registration building, whatever it was supposed to be. We basically turned it into like an anime meme palace, just full of any weird and obscure anime reference we could. And then of course now it's all gone. But yeah, very very fun times.
Hmm. So, what have been some of your favorite moments working with a team or being in the community for Argus, may I ask?
Ooh. I think some of my favorite moments are actually not with the team, but also like, of course I have a lot of like special moments with them, and of course like being able to see my creations out there is very special to me. But I think when I was back in the community, like hard in the community, like I was, I made like this little guild and it was called the Syndicate, and we ran little events and stuff. So we just had kind of fun doing little events in the world, and it was a fun time. Eventually, of course, the guild came to an end, and I said goodbye to it. But it was a very, very fun time, and I will probably remember that for maybe the rest of my life.
Oh, well, I'm glad you've had a lot of moments like that. One of the things I remember from Savvy's conversation we had with him was a lot of the events they've ran with Argus as well. How many of those have you
Hmm.
partook in since you've joined?
Oh yeah, I try and take part in like pretty much any Argus event, and now I'm actually hosting my own Argus event, and the pressure is on, so it is quite stressful, but I am like happy to like be doing it because, you know, as stressful and hair pulling as this whole ordeal can be, I do enjoy it, and it is just a great time just seeing everyone have fun.
Hmm. So, what made you want to run your own event, and what were you kind of anticipating it would be like before you realized it was a hair pulling experience?
Honestly, I did expect it to be a hair pulling experience from the start just because Savvy basically prepared me. He was very like, okay, are you sure you're ready kind of deal. And I was like, absolutely. And of course, they're still helping me with this. But yeah, it's actually the same thing I was talking about earlier, this whole like castle Halloween ball thing.
Hmm.
It's an official Argus thing, and the stress has only gotten worse as more and more communities have been roped in because now there's like this DJ community and this influencers community, and of course our own, and I'm just like, oh, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Oh, so how have you been working through those newfound stresses after trying to organize the whole event?
Honestly, taken me days. Basically, like, every Monday I do like this RP thing, and I just feel free to take a me day. I will of course still work on it, but I will not try and like stress work. I will not try and like cram everything. I will just like if I can, I will do it, but I gotta prioritize me and take a decompressor. So I'm
Hmm.
not like, wickedly stressed all the time.
Hmm. Okay. So I'd like to ask another question, kind of sort of in line with that. With your VR chat experience now, how much is building stuff and how much is you playing and enjoying stuff?
Oof, like honestly, it's mostly just been building stuff. Like, of course, I like to kind of like go around Argus, like just kind of talk to people, be like, hey, what's up? What's going good? Answering people's questions is normally like what happens if I go into like a public lobby. A lot of people see the blue crystal that might be above my head and be like, what's that mean? I'm a dev, and then they're like, oh, can you answer like these a billion questions? And I don't get me wrong, I am happy to answer them, but yeah. But yeah, most of it is just projects and working, and I try to kind of like, chill when I can.
Okay. So, with those questions in mind, what have been some of your favorite community interactions with the Argus community and the people who enjoy the world you and your team are building?
Oh. Yeah, I think some of my favorite community interactions are, for one, the questions, seeing people's genuine curiosity, and of course, first, like, you know, view into this crazy world, seeing them just like be like, you guys made this in VR chat? You know. So that's always like my favorite thing to see. Some of my favorite some of my favorite community interactions. Sorry, I can barely speak today.
It's all good.
Um, yeah, some of my favorite community interactions are always just kind of like seeing what's new with them, because they're always like doing something creative and cool with the world we made. And because like I mentioned the lands earlier, it like, a lot of them sound like they have like something new in the works that's hopefully a bit more, controlled. And yeah, it's very fun to like just see them be so excited and energetic about a world we've made. And I think whenever we get to do our Q&A sessions before like a open beta or like an update, I think those are kind of my favorite moments, because like, I'm up there on stage answering a couple questions every now and again, and just getting to feel the energy of the room, of the excitement of people. So it's very, very fun.
Oh, wow. That's thank you for explaining all of that to us. I'm going to ask you a
Mm-hmm.
technical question now. How much do you use in your
Of course.
regular creator's toolkit, either by 3D or 2D? And how much of it has changed as you've been getting better at it over the years? Oh, I'm here to interrupt your current video, ask you a favor. Down in the description, down that way, is a link, metaversedegen.card.co, which you have a whole bunch of other places. If you wish to continue following us, we have a Twitter, which I run for us, which you get updates and other stuff and random thoughts from me. We have a Discord where Raptor, I, and the entire crew and all the other people we know will be over there hanging out. We game there fairly regularly or hang out in there, so feel free to go over that way and come chat with us. We'd love to meet you. We have a Spotify now. Surprise. Everything from a couple weeks ago forward, we'll have our Spotify content on Fridays. If I remember, we'll put some of our old content forward, but we're going to keep up with the current content on Spotify. So if you wish to watch it there or listen to it there, it'll be there for you as well. Also, we have a Patreon, which we have a whole other show, which we haven't been keeping up with, but we're doing our best. But we have a whole other show there for you as well. We would like to give a huge thanks to some of our supporters over that way, which is Future Oracle, Aliquum, Niche, and Forbidden Zero, all of which we thank you very much for everything, and hopefully we'll see you around and you continue to enjoy the content. Enjoy the current video. Oh boy.
Ooh, yeah. I guess using Blender as an example, previously I used to just kind of take shapes and mash them together. I used to not really understand too much about stuff like modifier sculpting, modeling. Like, all that stuff was just so super alien to me, and I just didn't know, like, the half of it. And now that I've gotten more experienced, just in my, like, just a couple minutes ago as I was working on the world, I just like I kind of did take a second to realize just how much I've like grown, and like, because a lot of it's became so much muscle memory, using like Boole tools, just kind of like casually making like really weird abstract shapes, and then taking into Unity and somehow understanding everything in there. And it grows a little bit every day, because I try to at least learn something new with stuff. Like, for example, I recently learned how to use parallax shaders, and that has been a great help.
I'm going to sound really dumb here, but what's a parallax shader and a Boole tool?
Uh,
Yeah.
so
Sounds like a garden tool to me. We're out in the middle of an old setup here. We might farm some of these weeds away. That's what it sounds like for me.
yeah, basically a Boole tool is just I'm trying to think if there's any examples here in this world, but I actually do not think there is. Basically, you can take two shapes and basically cut the shape out of the other. So if like I put a cube here and then I put another cube here, I can basically delete that cube and it'll take like a section out of that. And so you can use that to kind of make some cool shapes, which I abuse it all the time. I actually use a tool called Bool Tool, which is not like, I actually think it is now a basic Blender plugin, but I use that all the time. Like I can now not imagine modeling without it. And then parallax shaders are basically if you want to give a flat object a sense of depth, like you want to make it look like it has a room or something inside. And that one's huge. Actually, a good example is if you've ever played any of the Spider-Man games, they use parallax shader, especially the most recent ones. If you're like up and against like a window in a skyscraper and you can like almost see a room inside and it looks like it has depth, that's actually a parallax shader. It's also so they don't have to waste a ton of like GPU and CPU resources, actually physically modeling a whole room. It's just a false room that technically doesn't exist. So it's cool.
Oh, I think I understand. You know, like if you see those parallax posters, is that the kind of thing you're talking about where you look in and it looks bigger?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty similar thing, and I believe there's also a couple other things because of course it can't be as simple as just a parallax shader. There's a billion other things, and they are all in their own right just crazy. But yeah.
So with all of this you're explaining to us, when you first started way back when you had the inspiration to start creating worlds and other stuff, did you expect all of this technical knowledge when you first got into it?
Not at all. I thought like basically when I started it was like funny shapes. I thought, hey, this is as simple as just putting them together, right? And like I thought like sculpting would be easy since I'm like an artist. I have not touched sculpting because it is like crazy. I have made a couple bodies and hands, but outside of that, I am still very intimidated to go anywhere near it. But yeah, no, it's like I said, it's ever since like I was just a wee novice back then, like this has just became bigger and bigger, and now I find myself getting excited when like I see like new tools are announced for like Blender or Unity, and like I'm like, man, I would have thought I was a dork if like my younger self saw me.
Well, if you're that interested in art, there could also be a chance your younger self would have been really excited to see where you're going. Coming from hearing how you want to
That
build comics and then do art, and eventually you worked on some avatars, I'm sure you'd be more dumbfounded than cringed.
oh, probably. Like I do find myself doing a bit of like yeah, like I just find myself doing a little bit of whatever, and just getting interested in the weirdest stuff I would have never expected. Like now I'm like kind of getting into like computers, and I hope at some point I can start learning what the hell coding is. But no time soon because that still boggles my brain.
Yeah,
That's real techno wizardry.
I can understand. I had a little bit of touch into it, not anything to make anything. Like back in high school, I did some web design coding. I learned like C++
Oh.
and or C++, Flash code, and I couldn't make anything work, to be honest with you.
I feel you. I feel you. I've touched it once and I tried to make a game and nothing moved, nothing worked. And I was just like, I banged my head onto, my desk. I was just like, I can't figure this out.
So this is what barbarians feel like when they're trying to read rune codes of magic.
Pretty much. The best thing I've ever heard is like being a programmer is like the real life version of being a wizard in a concealed tower. Like you are quite literally messing around with an arcane language that allows you to do magic stuff.
I can agree with that. I think of a handful of times I've had the chance of looking at people's code work and I just can't decipher anything. It's like, where's the magic cipher to understand this? Can never find it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's so insane.
You just wait for somebody in a tower to throw their hair down so you can climb the tower, huh? I gotcha.
I wish, a fair maiden could let down their hair and teach me all the wonders of coding. Unfortunately, anytime someone's tried to teach it to me, I'm just like, I just can't. It doesn't go through my brain. I think it's because I've been told it might be because I have a very artistic mindset, and you have to very much be thinking logically for coding, so that could be it, but yeah.
Hmm. So speaking of differences, I do have a bit of a question as well. How different is modeling and creation for avatars from world design, may I ask? Are they similar or are they very
Oh.
different beasts?
Oh yeah, they're very different because like I would argue like it's like the difference between skiing and snowboarding. Skiing is easy to get into and hard to master, while snowboarding is hard to get into and easy to master.
Hmm.
And it's very much like that. World creation is very easy to get into, hard to master because like I said, I picked it up immediately, quicker than I picked it up. Avatars, because like the basics are all there. Add collisions, set the world respawn point. Here's an event caller. That kind of stuff. But then like with avatars getting into that, it was like here's the cats plugin, here is optimizing, here's like a bunch of other stuff, and then you have to take it into Unity, and Unity is a whole other thing. Then you have to do Visemes, and then I was like, you're going too fast. Hold on, slow a minute. But then as like time goes on, now I've found myself being able to like optimize things with ease. Like avatars are pretty dead simple for me now that I understand most of it. But now worlds have only gotten harder as I want to do more and more ambitious things because now it's opened up to game worlds. And I believe if you've been paying attention with Vrchat, they've announced persistence, which like has me excited. I definitely have a lot of things planned and stuff I want to do with that. But yeah, like the beast that is Worlds has only now grown in just huge size as, avatars are kind of just like, they don't seem that hard anymore. Of course. Yeah.
Fair. I very much understand it. Thanks for explaining the differences. I've only watched from afar. I'm not one of those people like in the wizard tower, one would say, for one court or the other. It's kind of one of the people that stands up watching and goes, wow, this is dope. And to be honest, what people like you do is crazy. I very much applaud you for it.
Thank you. It's a lot of work, and you do have like it's a lot of dedication, not in the kind of sense of you gotta push through it, but also kind of like if you want to get good, you have to kind of like be willing to learn new things and be willing to take criticism. And I think that like criticism especially is something people should always be prepared for and be very open to. I am always open to like going to my world and having people talk shit about it. I like want people to tell me what could be better, what could I improve, down to the most minute thing. Did you have like a little bit of a hard time finding a particular room? Like that's something I want to know so I can improve.
Hmm. So on the topic of criticism, what have been some of the easiest criticism you've taken, and what was the hardest criticism you've taken with your work?
Ooh, easiest is always gonna be like, design stuff. Like, this is a little off, the colors are kind of meh, you shouldn't use an emission shader. Those are easy enough because one, they're people's opinions, but two, they're good to take to heart because then you can be like, this is how I can improve my thing. Because like I wouldn't say do something exactly as someone says because once again it's an opinion, but take it to heart and try to come to the root of like why they said it. Why did they say like my avatar seems a little like harsh on the colors? Is it because I'm using too much saturation? That kind of stuff. I think like one of the obviously my biggest criticisms I always get because I'm so obsessed with grand architecture is that my worlds are too big. They take too long to traverse, and it's kind of like I have to find that nice balance between, jaw-dropping scale and still being able to move throughout it. Because if I could make a world that like truly, tickled my funny little brain, it would be giant. It would take forever to get through.
Okay, so may I ask what attracts you to like grandiose things or worlds? What about that attracts you?
I think it's a lot of those kind of older pictures I've always seen. I think you probably still find them on like Pinterest, but it's like I think the single thing I can go back to is this kind of German architectural design of a giant, huge stadium, almost the size of a city. And the thing I remember that originally got me to think it was so amazing was that this structure would be so massive that the condensation of the people breathing in there would create its own weather system. Of course, that's a whole lot of malarkey. There's nothing scientific about that to begin with, but it was very like inspiring to me to think of like architecture taken to such a grand extreme, something quite literally larger than life, an obelisk in the sky, and I think it's called giophobia or something like giant phobia, where it's like it's the fear of giant things. For me, it's not that I fear them, but it's like that it creates such a sense of wonder. Like in video games like Armored Core, where like you can see these giant superstructures and it creates like such a sense of thought of like how is this thing even made, and just pure amazement as it goes far beyond the clouds and just almost fades out of view, and it is just simple yet still so detailed and immaculate. That stuff is just like truly just great to my brain, and I love seeing it.
Hmm. So with inspiration from like the creation of giant things, what were some of the first projects you work on to try and emulate that?
Yeah, some of the first like project I like my first world project, going back to that maze, was once again inspired off the comic, and I don't think I did it justice in the world because as I drew it in the comic, it was huge. It was giant. The walls that around the maze itself were, touching the sky, and of course a giant like tower pillar in the middle that just went far above the clouds. And I think that was probably my favorite drawing I've not ever made, but one of my favorite drawings. And I just never really could capture it in the world, no matter how tall I made um the walls, no matter how much fog I added. I just felt like I couldn't get that. But it was in one particular part that I actually did get that sense. It wasn't in the main part, but it was just a couple turns in the world. There's this single corridor that descends down, and it's pretty long, and you get a true sense of the scale for once, where you can see how tall it is. The fog comes in, and you can see the rows of different options you can take. And I think that truly, that succeeded in that aspect of doing what I wanted, and I've always chased that because I want that like huge sense of wonder, fear, and just all around amazement.
Okay. So has that drive to make grandiose things, has that been a motivator for you as well when creating things?
Oh yes, most certainly. I have it's always in the back of my mind because like at least now I have kind of learned new nuances and I can appreciate normal I would say normal design because now
Mm.
I'm kind of making more stuff like this game world I've been wanting to make with persistence, like a space game. I'm now like not just going all out on this, a spaceship. I'm like making it pretty modestly sized, but packing a lot into something that's still small. But I still want to get that sense of huge with, especially with these planets I'm about to be making. Like I want you to be over a planet and be able to really feel this grand scale of like you are just kind of a little dot in this huge universe.
Hmm. So is this spaceship in space world you're talking about, is that your idea for what you'll do with persistence? And what kinds of things are you planning to do with persistence?
Oh yeah, I have a ton planned with this one. Basically the core thing I want to do is I kind of want to make like a space adventure game. I want to like for one, people to be able to explore different star systems, but I want people to kind of like land on planets and like be able to like, of course, not all in one world. This will have to be broken up into different worlds because if I could do that all in one world, whew, that would be a game of its own. But the current plan is like you have this main world, which is like, you're in a spaceship, you can fly around space, see different planets, but then, once you get into a planet's orbit, a little portal open up and it's just a VR chat portal and it allows you to go onto that planet. And something I want to do is people to like get adventures and like get quests and like go to different planets, get lost. And the biggest mechanic I want to add is the possibility that if your ship isn't maintained, it can crash land and you will be stranded for a little bit. You have to kind of get your way out of it because, as big as space is, and something I see with other space games is it's a bit too linear. You just go from point A to point B, no problems. But space is huge. It's dangerous, you know? And I want to kind of create that sense of just like anything could happen if I'm not careful because anything can't happen and it will only open you up to more adventure and hope to see people kind of bragging about the little things they might find in this huge world I might be making.
So what inspired this whole project to begin with, may I ask?
Two things. The first one was a game called Star Citizen, which a lot of people probably have. It's the huge money MMO, I think it's in the trillions of dollars in profit now. It's insane. It's a truly ambitious project. But that, like, I used to play quite a bit. I was completely, like, not free to play, but, I wouldn't spend any money on ships. But, I truly loved kind of, like, exploring in the sense of, like, earning more in, like, you know, as a space person. And getting to explore different worlds. But out of anything, I didn't like the main story missions. I liked kind of like making my own fun of it. I liked when I got to like go to a planet, fight a space NP like a space pirate NPC, and land to go pick up a person that has been stranded on that planet, And then that little interaction. I love like interactions like that just because it's so much fun. So
Wow.
and then, oh, yeah, the second inspiration would be an anime called Space Dandy. And that is, if you haven't watched it, highly recommend. 24 episodes of just the best anime, in my opinion. It is my second favorite, right below One Piece. And it is just such a blast. It takes everything Ray Punk and even something I would call disco punk, like which it just it has such a funky groovy vibe, and the alien designs are insane, truly just something out of this world. It's possibly, and I will stand by this, the best space anime, maybe next to maybe next to Cowboy Bebop, but probably like the best, like, Ray Punk space anime of just that crazy, wacky universe. Every planet has absurd life, and humanity has truly gone beyond the stars and invented crazy, faster than light travel. It's just so awesome to see, and I love to see it.
All right, so I'm going to ask you a really difficult question that may be a divider amongst a lot of people, since from the sounds of it, you like
Ooh.
space-themed stuff. Star Trek, Star Wars, or Stargate?
Ooh. That is kind of a tricky one. I originally grew up as a Star Wars kid, like because that was what I was exposed to. But I did kind of I would say I equally enjoyed Star Trek just as much, but I think out of all my favorites is none of them, it's Firefly.
I could see
And
why. Firefly's a really good one.
it's once again that space adventure and I guess this one doesn't really count, but also Futurama, just because all of them have that great space adventure to them of just a bunch of people doing wacky stuff in a ship that can go anywhere. And it is truly just love to feel that sense of adventure.
Hmm. So from those initial two inspirations you told us about, what about those inspired you to want to work on this giant space project? What about those things made you like decide I want to emulate this?
Yeah, like for one, Space Dandy is probably the biggest hauler of everything. I want because it's the adventure, the aliens, the planets, the style, everything I just love down to a T. Like I love just the style of it. It's so amazing because like the planets are so near yet so far. Like space travel is very wacky and weird, and the universe is just huge. Half the time, in the anime they're alien hunters. Half the time they don't even hunt aliens. They just go off on a weird adventure for because they heard a guy talk at a bar. And like it's truly that stuff of just like hearing a rumor and it leads to this grandiose thing that I want to emulate. But then from Star Citizen, I want to emulate a lot of those mechanics of just kind of, for one, scale. Star Citizen, I think, does it better than any game I've seen. It truly makes like planets feel like planets. That like a moon is a little bit smaller. It's a little bit more to comprehend. But then there's this gas giant in the game, and when you get near it, it like when you jump to it, like quantum like jump to it, it's just fills your entire screen. It's bigger than you can imagine, and trying to encapsulate it all in one thing. And I especially love being on its moons because its moons are like different planets, and as you're on its surface, you can see it in the distance, and it looks like another sun. And it's truly just like such an amazing thing to feel. And yeah, I want to kind of recreate a lot of those kind of elements of one, maintaining a ship, and two, traveling the stars. Of course, I won't be doing something as crazy as like, you will physically travel the distance of the stars. Most of it will just be faster than light travel. You're there, then you're there. Probably a little bit of time in between, but you know, a lot of it I would like to say cheating on, I guess. I don't know.
Fair enough. So, question for you: have you ever played No Man's Sky in VR yet? 'Cause that's another game that does the whole
Oh,
giant planets and space travel pretty well in VR.
I have I have not. I've been told to try it out. I've been wanting to. Um, it's actually kind of a bummer because like as I've became more busy, I've like have less time for games, and like I really want to try all this stuff because for one, like I've needed to kind of been like holding myself back on playing stuff like, Sung Black Myth Sung Wukong and Space Marine 2. I've been wanting to like play those, but then of course I'm working on this project and I'm like, well, I can't, take my time away. So I'm hoping in the future, I can start, just kind of going back to playing a little games and relaxing for a bit, and that's what I'm hoping to do once November rolls around. Because for one, November the 6th, 1.6 will be releasing in Aincrad, so, a lot of my work there is done, and of course, come the 25th of October, my work with this ball is done, and I can just kind of chillax for a second, play some games before I start, of course, this space project, which will more than likely absorb a lot of my time.
Okay. Well, I wish you the best of luck, and even though you're very bogged down, I'm sure there's a lot of people who appreciates the work you're putting in to VR chat and the Argus community as well.
Yeah, I do hope people appreciate what I'm doing, and I hope to show them plenty of more work.
Hmm. So last few questions before we start wrapping this up a little bit is first is the name you use here in VR chat, where'd it come from and why do you use it? Oh,
Oh,
And you
sorry,
froze.
I froze.
oh,
I'm
did I
back.
just?
You
I'll
froze a little bit.
Yeah,
I'm back.
Fine.
The name you use in VR chat, where'd it come
yeah.
from and why do you use it? Sorry, I lagged.
Oh, you're completely fine. Yeah, I used to play a lot of Xbox way back when, and I don't even remember what the name I used to go by was. Wow, I really can't remember. I think it was probably something of the sort of like Deadstone or something edgy a 12-year-old makes. I used to play a lot of Siege, and eventually like, man, I want a new name, and so I tried out a different bunch. Sorry. Sorry about that. I haven't drank any water, so my throat's probably drying up here. But yeah, basically, I wanted to like actually have a real username that was my own because all of them were kind of random thoughts, and of course, I was growing out of a edgy name like Deadstone. So eventually, I just kind of I tried out a bunch of different ones, and eventually ran out of the free name changes. And Xbox, if you don't know, forces you to take a weird random name if you're out of like the actual name picks. And the name that came up was Peakboat. And for a long time, I resented it. I was just waiting to change it. I forgot to change it, and that grew on me. And then, oh my god.
You
Ooh,
okay?
sorry about that. Yeah, just can't take a minute. Just
Yeah, take all the time you need. Sorry we got you talking for so long.
oh, you're completely fine. All right. So yeah, basically the name that came up was Peakboat. And I was just like, well, I'll just stick with it, I guess. It doesn't sound all that bad. And eventually, it just kind of stuck for some weird reason. I just kind of liked going by Peak, which is what most people kind of just call me now. And I thought it was kind of a fun little thing. So that's kind of what I just defaulted to. It was a great, great time. And you know what? I thank Xbox for introducing me to such a weird and random name. So, yeah.
That's really awesome. That's how you got your name. And the last question would be the avatar you're in. Why do you use it? And is there anything about it or any features that mean anything to you?
Mm, like, honestly, I just kind of like being lanky avatars for the most part. I love just kind of long arms and noodle legs. It's very much fun to me. But the design of this character is actually kind of inspired off of another comic I was planning to make when I was in a pretty bad time in my life. It was actually going to be called The King of Entropy. And it was kind of this comic about a man who can basically just make anything he wants, but he lives in a world of nothing. And it's kind of the albeit thing of entropy. If you know what that means, it kind of just means everything goes back to a zero. Like everything just becomes nothing. And that's kind of like the point. Like no matter what he creates, it all just kind of becomes nothing. It's a bit of a kind of nihilistic story, but as time went on, I did hope to have a more kind of optimistic look on his outcome. But yeah, that's kind of where this design comes from.
Oh, wow. Thank you for explaining all that, Peak Bowden. Thank you for your time letting us hear your tale and get
Yeah,
in
no
get
doubt,
inside to you.
Peak.
Indeed.
Very much so.
So
Yeah. I loved sharing with you guys. And thank you for having me here. Very like, of course, my first like real interview ever. Of course, outside of Argus, and so this has been very fun, and I especially love that I got to talk about a lot of my interests outside of it. So yeah, thank you so much.
no problem. It is our pleasure. One of our guilty pleasures of running this is we get to hear the things that inspire, excite the various people from the platform, such as yourself. Like the interest of grandiose things in the space games you play. It's interesting to us. It's how we learn how things be, and whenever you go into one of your worlds and you see a reference, we may know what that reference is from. It's interesting to us.
Yeah, I do hope as like I make more worlds, people can go check them out. If you ever see me, you can of course click on my profile and check out any of them that are public. A lot of my previous kind of Gala and Ball worlds are all public, and you can go check them out. They're a grand old time. And hey, if you ever want to host events there, feel free to reach out to me. A lot of the kind of systems I use for them kind of are more like very personal, but I have been working on systems so people can kind of just hop into a world and have all the admin accessibility without needing to like be officially put in my system as an admin. So yeah, feel free to always check out my world, and I do hope to show you guys my cool space game whenever that comes out.
We'll be very excited to find it. And where can the audience reach out and find you if they wish to reach out and find you?
You can find me on Discord, and hopefully within the link of this video, I believe, there will be a link to a Discord called Donut Powered Studios, which name's a bit still a bit of work in progress, but you know, that'll be where I'm posting all my cool projects and pretty much anything, you know, relating to me. So, yeah, if if any of my ideas catch your eye, feel free to head over there.
Thank you very much. All of the links, including to Argus and their server, will be in the description right down below for you to find. And as I always say, I'm sorry ahead of time for all the links that'll be down there, but I'm also not sorry because it's more for you to explore and enjoy. And as always, before we close this up and hand it to Raptor, I'll ask you the question. It's the same question I actually asked Peak earlier. Star Wars, Star Trek, or Stargate? Which is better? I enjoy wars. I hope I start one. All right, Raptor. You know the thing.
Yeah, I know the thing, and hopefully, no matter what you do, folks, just like Pete, he likes wearing a cardboard box. You saw him earlier. Me, I'm stuck in a barrel. Problem is, I can't figure out how to get to the bottom of this one because there's no holes in it.
You're just gonna move
you
forward.
Find the hole.
Or towards the middle.
Move forward. It doesn't go down, dude. It don't go down, okay? I want to be, if that was the case, I'd be at the bottom talking out of the barrel. So if you ever see me running around, everything else like this, gosh. Have a good one. We'll talk to you later, and at least say hi. We'll talk to you later, folks. Have a good one. Man, you fucked me up.
Why, hello there. Why, you look there lost there, bit fella. How'd you wind up down here?
I don't know. I got into the luggage of the airplane, and then I got stuck in the luggage, and now I'm stuck down. Then I saw an entity here. It just scared the shit out of me, and I had to run down the hallway to get away from it. You're not the genie that everybody's talking about around here, are you?
Why, yes. In fact, I am. I get around. I'm here in section A, B, C, D, E, the spirit of capitalism and feeling truly free. Taking off into the skies, got prices soaring high. It's a great place to be. The one and only genie.
Do you grant wishes? I got to get the VCAT. I got friends that are already gone, and I know how to get the hell out of this goddamn freaking airport. Everybody thinks I'm a goddamn squirrel, and they just keep butting me around like, and thank God they ain't feeding me nuts. But hey, what the hell? You don't know how to grant some wishes or anything, do you?
Now, here's the thing. Wishes take time, and time is money. And money is a circle that goes all the way around and comes back to yours truly here. So if you want some sort of wish granted, I can do pretty much anything you can do at an airport here. But it'll cost you.
That's no problem. Money's not an issue. I just got to get the VCAT.
Now, for your destination, though, we have to send you higher. The CX is the type to get you higher to where you need to go. You ride those rails and you'll find your destination in a favorable presentation, arriving to you in no time. Remember, this terminal is not legally responsible for any sort of injuries obtained during the riding of the rails. Please wear a helmet, keep all your hands inside the railway, please wear goggles, and avoid any luggage inbound.
Don't miss out for Winter VCAT, December 7th through the 22nd. See you there.
No, you don't ride anything. You ride the rails. Not a cart. I said dodge the carts. Get moving.
Oh, so I got to run the rail. Okay. Thanks, Genie. I'll talk to you later. This doesn't look like VCAT. What the hell oh, crap.